All right, welcome back to Yahoo Finance Live on this Wednesday morning. It's been a whirlwind couple of weeks for regulation of and in the cryptocurrency space, and stopping by to help us make sense of where we stand now and what the future might look like is Michelle Bond, CEO of the Association for Digital Assets Markets. Michelle, thanks so much for jumping on. Let's just start with kind of from your vantage point, what got into that infrastructure bill, what didn't, and what does it mean for the cryptocurrency space as we go forward here?
Yeah, certainly. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on. And we have had a busy few weeks in Washington. Certainly, we've had a lot of things with, significant developments happening over the past couple of weeks. And I think it all underscores the need for digital asset, the industry, to have a coordinated and sophisticated approach to information sharing with policymakers. Because what we just saw play out with the infrastructure bill, was an extremely difficult process. It's now headed to the House, and we'll see if the House is willing to reopen it. According to reports, Speaker Pelosi is not going to reopen the legislation for amendments. So it's unclear if any changes will actually be made in the House at this point. So we're still working on trying to get an amendment. Certainly, the Senate did make significant improvements to the bill prior to introduction. However, there was a compromise amendment that did not pass via unanimous consent in that sort of like final stage on the Senate floor before going over to the House. And that has, so currently the language, there is some really problematic language for the industry that's contained in the infrastructure bill, where it expands the broker definition. It raises questions about securities laws, and certainly there are some criminal penalties that are associated with failure to comply. So there are a lot of concerns that the industry has at this point. And, we're working very closely with the Hill and trying to see, basically how we can get this fixed.
Michelle, in your dealings with officials, do you get the sense they know really anything about cryptocurrency and where it might be headed over the next decade?
So, look, I think last week's fire drill was, honestly, I think it was related to the digital asset industry's failure to be fully plugged into the policymaking process. And this is really the second major fire drill that we've had in the past year. I think the grassroots engagement was nothing short of spectacular and a real testament to the technology and to those working in this field. But the reality is that digital assets are, rapidly growing and will only attract more attention in Washington. So to answer your question, I think there is a lot more information sharing and engagement that needs to happen between the industry and policymakers. I think there's an enormous public interest and passion for digital assets. And I think that has to come to Washington a little bit more, because we cannot continue relying on grassroots advocacy and fire drills to protect this industry. I think the model is unsustainable. And I think it's going to be much more important to be fully integrated. And honestly, to be talking with policymakers on a day in, day out basis and talking with them about, the technology and the benefits and consumer protection and all of those things, so that we can sort of avoid this 11th hour, regulation that we just saw happen, with the infrastructure bill. And honestly, it happened in December as well with the FinCEN unhosted wallet rule proposal as well. So it's not the first time this has happened. And I think we're going to be better off if we can see some more sophistication and outreach with policymakers at an earlier onset.
Hey, Michelle, it's Julie here. What exactly does that look like? I'm always curious about this in Washington, not just for crypto, but since we're talking to you and you're a crypto person, like, how do you get their ear? We know, listen, we know how Washington works. We know that there's money greasing the wheels in some cases, right? There's donations to various campaigns or causes of these politicians. How do you get their ear? How do you crypto is an enormously complex topic. How do you communicate it clearly? Like, how do you make all of this happen?
So my organization, Adam, is a standard setting body, and we work with leading financial firms, entrepreneurs, regulators, and we set industry best practices and policies to facilitate fair and orderly digital asset markets. And so clearly the industry is taking, through my organization, is taking a leading role in setting market standards and creating policy principles. And I think that's a critical way to advance the industry and to also ensure consumer protection without stifling any innovation. And I think that has been extremely effective with policymakers because they see that there's an industry group that is dedicated to market integrity. We're working in partnership with regulators. We have a code of conduct that we've advanced. And it's a really great way to have an adaptable, workable framework to protect consumers without stifling innovation. And that has been an extremely effective tool that we really enjoy talking with policymakers about, because they see that there is regulation in this space and that the market participants themselves are dedicated to setting industry standards. And also just to raise awareness of how the markets work and who the participants are and how to root out fraud and those types of things. And that's really what our group is dedicated to. And I think that's a much preferable way to engage with regulators and policymakers more broadly, as opposed to sort of the 11th hour grassroots campaign. Once something's already in legislation, I think it's a lot more difficult. So I think the industry really needs to be proactive in setting its own standards and working in partnership with regulators, to talk with them about the technology, the benefits, if there's any education that's required, and just engage on a daily basis. The Biden administration has created the crypto sprint with the banking regulators. The SEC is looking at this space. The CFTC is looking at this space. Obviously, Capitol Hill. So there are a lot of people who want to talk and who want to hear more. So I think the opportunity is absolutely there. I think we just need to engage in a really constructive and helpful manner with these policymakers.
Yeah, and certainly a conversation that we know will continue. We'll leave it there for today. Michelle Bond, CEO of the Association for Digital Asset Markets. Michelle, appreciate the time this morning.